Welcome, everyone, to the human experience.
Okay, well, I'm recording.
I am too.
Okay. Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Welcome back to the Human Experience Podcast, rated 5 stars on Apple Podcasts by Tim Keller. Man, I love this podcast. It teaches me so much about how to be a better leader and effective ways to grow my church. The Human Experience Podcast is the leading leadership podcast on everywhere you can listen to podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, whatever you're into. I mean, some people even watch it on regular YouTube. If that's what you like, go ahead. I'm your host, Andrew. This is my co-host,
Aiden, what's up?
Today we're going to be talking about vision and leadership and why it's important to, and how you can relate God back to leadership and being a leader. I said leader like 12 times there, but we're all right, you know?
I didn't notice.
We're going to We're going to talk about what vision takes and does. A necessary element that every vision must have is buy-in. Without buy-in, the vision is only a daydream. It requires commitment and not compliance. A vision can be lost simply because of how difficult it is. You may be wondering, that's cool, Vision, that guy from the MCU. But what does it do? Gabagoo. Provides direction and purpose. It unifies people into a community towards a single goal.
I have something to add. What you notice a lot in wars is that nobody wins it. Nobody wins in a war. And that's because not only is it not under God's name, but also it was what you were saying where you have to have commitment versus compliance. Because if a soldier complies to their leader, then they're just like fighting. But if they have commitment to their country, that's truly when they have the most willpower, and that can often be
fully committed to God through our vision. Our visions are going to end up to nothing. And it's kind of like what we had talked about before the podcast about you see a lot of these leaders throughout history that aren't really into the whole God thing, the whole Christianity thing. And literally all of their plans fail. There's not one single leader's plan that actually works out. And it's because they're not rooted in God. And you had told me something, and we've actually got it written down about the Bible and God's plans for people, and it was your whole spiel, so if you just want to share that.
So what you notice a lot in the Bible is that God directs the main characters by giving them visions to enact specific plans that he has for them. You can find a really good example of this in the story of David. He was nothing but like a farmer's boy, but he was loyal to God, and God showed him many visions of what he was supposed to do. And eventually he became the leader of Israel.
Yeah, and I do agree. I fully am with you on that. Like, if he wouldn't have been fully devoted to God, for all we know, he could have just been a farmer's boy for the rest of his life. Lived with his dad, like some millennial living in his mom's basement. But he loved the Lord and was passionate for God. So the plans and ideas he had worked out. And it's also like Abraham was promised to be the father of many nations throughout his life, and tried to have a kid for many, many decades. And then God gave him a son, and he raised the son, and God was like, hey, bro, that's cool and all. Kill your son. And Abraham obviously was like, hey, bro, that's not cool. But he loved the Lord, so he was going to do it anyways. And then, obviously, we all know that when he went to go sacrifice his son, God was like, hey, yo, hold up. I was just playing with you, dog. It was just a prank. And it was because he followed the vision and the plan that God had for him, because he was fully committed. Visions. We've talked about people and their visions. But how do we share our visions with other people, you may be asking? Depict your vision with stories that motivate people and get them enthusiastic and energized for your leadership and what you have planned for them. And you may be wondering, okay, so now that I've told them this vision, how do you get it to stick? First of all, it's got to be tied to reality.
I liked what you said about vision being tied to reality, because if you have an unrealistic vision, it's just not going to work out. No matter the manpower you have, no matter the actual power you have, it has to be tied into reality. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. Like, you can't just say, I'm gonna take over the world. Russia. What?
Another thing is, vision is not simply vital because of what it is, but because of what it does. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Human Experience Podcast. Be sure to tune in next week to see who our special guest star is. And also I'd like to thank this week's sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN is amazing software that allows you to hide your internet in your iPhone wherever you're using the internet. And you can also use it to get into those little oopsie doopsie extra country Netflix libraries that aren't here in America. So be sure to go to nordvpn.com/human experience for 10% off your first month. Thank you guys so much.